My father hit me for defending Grandpa, tipped his wheelchair into the freezing dark, and called him dead weight. The dead weight had been holding their mortgage the entire time. My father tipped my grandfather's wheelchair into the snow and shut the door. I want you to understand the specific mechanics of it, not a push. A tip, the front wheels lifted first, then the chair went forward, and my grandfather went with it, coat and all, into the December dark at 9 degrees. The wheelchair kept spinning in the snow after he landed, one wheel, turning slow, ticking like it didn't know yet that it was supposed to stop. I stood on the porch and looked at that spinning wheel for a moment that I will never fully be done processing. Walter Roy Foster was 88 pounds in a wet wool coat. He was 91 years old, and 11 people who shared his name watched from behind warm glass without moving. I had done one thing wrong. I had spoken up. I had been working the dinner shift at Carver's Grill for 6 years when the Christmas that changed everything happened. Tuesday through Saturday, 4 to close, the kind of restaurant schedule that means you are always either going to a family event late or leaving early, and everyone has decided this is a personal failing rather than an employment reality. The Foster family Christmas was at my parents' house, always. My mother, Renata, had a gift for the kind of hospitality that was really about architecture, who sat where, who was served first, who was introduced to the new people as the interesting one. She had organized our family's social life for 30 years with the same precision she applied to her dining room table, and the result was a seating chart of the soul in which some people sat near the fire and some people sat in the corner. My grandfather sat in the corner. I want to be specific about this because it set the temperature of the whole night. Walt's wheelchair was positioned beside the side table near the kitchen doorway, not at the table beside it, and his plate was brought to him by whoever happened to be walking past, with whatever portion happened to be left over whenever someone remembered. He ate with the careful dignity of a man who has decided to be grateful for the food and say nothing about the arrangement. I noticed it every year. Every year I told myself it was logistics. The wheelchair made the table difficult. There wasn't a good spot. It wasn't intentional. The year I stopped telling myself, that was the year I watched my father walk past Walt's chair 3 times with the serving dish without stopping. "He is your father," I said. The table went quiet. "You're feeding him scraps in the corner like he isn't sitting right there." My father's hand came up and across before I finished the sentence. The slap turned my head. It rang in my left ear the way a struck pan rings. One hard note that keeps reverberating after the initial impact, a sound inside the sound. My eyes watered from pure reflex. I did not cry. 12 relatives found their plates fascinating. My sister Brooke covered her mouth, but not before I saw the corner of it lift, a twitch. Small and involuntary and honest in the way that involuntary things are honest. My father straightened his cuffs. The gesture of a man resetting after an exertion. He said it slowly, the way you state a house rule for a visitor who should have already known it. "You don't get a seat at this table, either of you." My mother rose from her chair and walked to the front door and opened it onto the December dark, 9 degrees and a sky with no room in it for anything warm. "Out," she said. "Both of you, we're done carrying dead weight. Dead weight." I got behind my grandfather's chair. I turned him toward the open door. My mother stood beside it without touching it, a woman holding a door for someone she has decided to be finished with, and I pushed Walt forward and down the porch ramp and into the cold. The door closed behind us. I heard the deadbolt turn. I looked down at the top of my grandfather's head, the white hair, the thin neck, the wet wool coat that was going to be soaked through in minutes, and I thought, I have to get him somewhere warm. That was the whole thought. Just that. The rest of it, the slap, the 12 faces, the corner by the kitchen, the specific cruelty of calling a 91-year-old man dead weight, went into a place that I have learned, over time, is not where you put things you're forgetting. It's where you put things you're saving. I loaded him into my car. I drove 11 minutes to my apartment building. I carried him up the stairs. My building had a broken elevator and had had one for 8 months, which is its own story. And I want to tell you about carrying him because I think about it more than almost anything else from that night. He weighed almost nothing. I don't mean this as a figure of speech. I mean that the man I was carrying up a staircase in my arms, a man who had built things and fixed things and raised a family and kept secrets that I had not yet begun to understand, weighed less than a box of books. Nobody warns you how light the people who raised you become. Nobody tells you that you will carry them upstairs one day and feel in the specific weight of them the whole long story of what time does. I put him in my bed. I gave him 2 blankets and a glass of water and my good pillow, the one I'd saved for from 3 paychecks. He took my hand and held it with a grip that was stronger than it had any right to be. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Yes, I did," I said. He reached into his coat pocket. He had a habit, I'd known about it my whole life without ever fully attending to it, of carrying small carved things, birds mostly. He'd been a wood carver before his hands got bad, and even after, he'd kept the smallest pieces with him, like other men keep change. He held out his palm, a wren, carved from some pale wood, small as a matchbox. The detail in the wings, impossibly fine for a man whose hands trembled now when he lifted a fork, warm from being in his pocket. "I only make these for the ones who'd never leave me in the cold," he said. I put it in my coat pocket, right side, where my hand rests naturally. I have carried it every day since. The 3 weeks between Christmas and the certified letter were ordinary in the way of periods that you later understand were the last ordinary time. Walt settled into my apartment with the ease of someone who had, perhaps, always been more at home with less. He slept well. He ate everything I made. He watched nature documentaries documentaries and fell asleep during them and woke up and asked what he'd missed. He carved one afternoon with a small knife I hadn't known he'd packed, working something I couldn't identify from across the room. And when I asked what it was, he said he wasn't sure yet. He did not talk about the family, neither did I. There was nothing to add to what had already been said. My mother called twice. I did not answer. My sister texted once, just checking you're okay. I wrote back, yes. She did not follow up. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday in January. Thick cream envelope, the kind of paper that has weight and texture and communicates, by its physical presence alone, that whatever is inside it has been prepared by people who consider presentation part of the message. Embossed navy ink in the return address corner, Crane and Holloway, trustees. Trustees. I turned the word over in my mind. In my experience, trustees meant estates, and estates meant property held for a beneficiary by a neutral party. And the kind of firm that used embossed cream envelopes for their correspondence was not handling small estates. Inside, a reference to property tax correspondence regarding something called the Ashford Mill site. I set the letter on the kitchen table and looked at it. I had known my grandfather for 26 years. I had been to his house and watched his hands and heard his stories and sat with him at the corner of my parents' table for the last decade of those years. I had never once heard him say the words Ashford Mill. I did not mention it to Walt that evening. I needed to understand it first. I looked it up the next day on my break, behind the restaurant, phone propped against the brick wall, fingers getting cold. Ashford Mill was not a ruin. It was not an abandoned site. It was an operating industrial complex. Acres of connected buildings, loading docks, a full parking lot on a Wednesday at 11 in the morning, trucks moving along the service road at the south end. The county property records listed the owner as Wren Holdings LLC, which I noted but could not yet connect to anything. I stood against that brick wall for a long time. Then I went inside and finished my shift. That evening, I sat across from Walt at my kitchen table and put the letter in front of him. He looked at it. He took my hand. His grip, as always, was stronger than anything else about him. I am not in trouble, he said. I am exactly where I chose to be. I asked him what the Ashford Mill was. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I need you to leave that alone for now. Can you do that for me? I could. I did. I didn't know that was the last thing he would ever ask me to keep. He died on a Tuesday in February at 4:51 in the morning. I know the time because I was awake. I had been awake most of the night, not from worry, or not primarily from worry, but from something I can only describe as attendance. Some part of me that understood, without being told, that this was the night I was supposed to be there. I was holding his hand when it happened. One moment there was a hand in mine, and the next moment there was the same hand, and it was different in a way I could feel before I could name. I sat with him until the window went from black to the gray of very early morning, the color of old pewter, the color of the hour before the world commits to being a new day. Then I went to my car. I sat in the driver's seat. I held the little carved wren against my sternum, both hands around it, and let the windows fog with my breathing. I sat there until I had finished whatever I needed to finish. Then I wiped my face, got out of the car, went back upstairs, and called the number on the cream envelope. Tom Crane called back in 40 minutes. He had a voice that I can only describe as deliberately calibrated, the voice of a man who understands that the way he says things is as important as what he says, and who has spent a long career developing the vocabulary for situations that require precision above all else. Ms. Foster, he said, there is a great deal to discuss. Before we do, I need to ask 3 things of you. He paused. Please do not sign anything that anyone puts in front of you in the next 10 days. Do not allow your father to file as next of kin without consulting me first. And please don't discuss the trustee letter with any member of your family. I asked him why. Because the situation is more complex than the letter indicated, he said. And because your grandfather was very specific about how he wanted it handled. 9 days later, I walked into a glass office tower in the financial district at 2 in the afternoon, wearing the blazer I had pressed twice that morning because I wanted to look like someone who belonged in a glass office tower, and found my parents already seated in the conference room in their good clothes. My father was drumming his fingers on the table. My mother's chin was elevated in the way she elevates it when she wants the room to understand she considers herself senior to it. My sister Brooke was beside my mother, phone in hand, with the expression of someone who has been told this is a formality and is planning to be elsewhere by 3. I stopped in the hallway outside the conference room. There was a framed logo on the wall beside the door, a small bird, plump, compact, mid-hop, rendered in the particular shade of warm brown that I associated with carved wood. Below it, in the same embossed navy as the envelope, Wren and Oak Incorporated. My hand went into my coat pocket. The wren was still warm. It is always still warm. I don't know the physics of that. I have stopped trying to explain it. I went into the conference room. Quick pause. If you want more stories like this in better quality, my Spotify's linked in the description. Tom Crane was 58 years old with 26 years in estate and trust administration, and the contained, unhurried authority of someone who has delivered significant news many times and has developed a sense of the room's oxygen level that tells him how fast to go. He had a folder. He did not open it immediately. He looked around the table, my parents, my sister, me, with the professional neutrality of someone who has decided that his feelings about the people in this room are not relevant to his function. Thank you all for coming, he said. I represent the estate of Walter Roy Foster as trustee of the Walter R. Foster Living Trust, established in 1997 and most recently amended amended 14 months ago. He opened the folder. The estate consists primarily of one asset, sole ownership interest in Wren and Oak Incorporated, a privately held home furnishings manufacturer headquartered here in state, with operations across 11 states and a portfolio of 100 commercial and residential properties. He turned the first page. My father had stopped drumming his fingers. As of the most recent independent valuation, conducted 8 months ago by Meridian Capital Advisors, he turned the page. Oh, the company is valued at approximately $1.1 billion. The room did not gasp. It went silent in a way that is louder than any gasp, the silence of air being removed from a space. My sister's phone dropped to the table. She didn't reach for it. My mother's hand moved to her throat. My father stared at the folder. Tom Crane continued. He did not pause for the silence. He did not acknowledge it. He read with the even pace of someone delivering a document, which is what he was doing, and the document did not care about the silence in the room. He described the company's history, founded by Walter Foster in 1961, built over 3 decades into a privately held enterprise of significant scale, and then a period of contested governance beginning in the early 1990s, when Walter Foster's son, my father, Gerald Roy Foster, had served as a temporary signatory on company accounts during a period when Walter was hospitalized for cardiac surgery. During this period, Crane said, share transfer documents were filed with the company's registered agent that purported to transfer a controlling interest from Walter Foster to Gerald Foster. These documents bore Walter Foster's signature. He looked up briefly. Mr. Walter Foster did not sign these documents. He was sedated in a cardiac care unit at the time of their filing. This was established during an investigation conducted over the past 4 years by the firm of Hargrove and Associates, forensic accounting specialists, in coordination with the Office of the State Attorney General. My father's face had done something I had never seen it do. It had gone still, not the stillness of composure, the stillness of a man whose machinery has stopped. The fraudulent share transfer was identified and legally invalidated in proceedings completed 11 months ago. Walter Foster retained sole ownership of Wren and Oak Incorporated throughout the entirety of the period in question, including all income generated, all property acquired, and all financial instruments held by the company. Crane turned another page, including the residential mortgage on the property at 14 Ashford Lane. My mother made a sound I had no prior reference point for. The property at 14 Ashford Lane. Crane set the page down and looked at her. Commonly referred to as the Foster family home. The mortgage on that property was assigned to Wren Holdings, a subsidiary of Wren and Oak Incorporated, 16 months ago. Walter Foster held the mortgage on his son's home, the house, the one with the yellow dining room and the deadbolt that had turned behind us in December, the one with the porch where my grandfather's wheelchair wheel had spun in the snow. The roof over their heads had belonged to the man they called Dead Weight. My father pushed back from the table. This is fraud, he said. His voice had a quality in it I had never heard. Thin, stretched, the voice of a structure under more load than it was built for. She's behind this. Hillary, she did something. She got to the old man, Mr. Foster. Crane's voice did not change in register or volume. I would encourage you to be very deliberate about what you say in this room. The recording being made of this meeting is standard procedure, and the transcript will be available to all parties. My father's mouth closed. Crane looked down the table at me. The Walter R. Foster Living Trust names one beneficiary. The entire estate, the company, the properties, the subsidiary holdings, the mortgage instruments, all liquid assets, is left to his granddaughter, Hillary Marie Foster. He looked at my father, then back at me. No other beneficiaries are named. My father exploded. I mean this in the specific sense. The stillness that had taken his face went all at once, and what replaced it was everything that had been building behind it. He stood up. He pointed across the table. He shouted fraud, conspiracy, undue influence, the specific vocabulary of someone who has been around legal proceedings long enough to know the words, but not their actual weight of evidence. He pointed at me and said things I won't repeat here because they are not interesting, only ugly. I waited. I am good at waiting. I have waited tables for 6 years. I have waited for numbers to reveal themselves. I waited in the December cold while my grandfather's wheelchair wheel slowed to a stop, and I understood what kind of people I came from. I am, by now, a person who waits well. My father ran out of breath. The room was quiet. I reached into my coat pocket. I set the little carved wren on the conference table. It was small enough to fit in the center of my palm, and I set it at the center of the table where all of them could see it. My father, red and breathing hard. My mother, white and very still. My sister, who had stopped looking at her dropped phone and was looking at the bird with an expression I'd never seen from her before. You took what he built, I said. Not loud, not performing it, just saying the thing Walt had handed me to carry, the night he handed me the bird. I looked at my father. You were never going to touch what he was. The loudest man in the room had nothing left to say. What happened after was complicated in the way that things worth $1.1 billion are always complicated, and I will tell you the honest version rather than the clean one. The criminal referral was already in process when I walked into that conference room. Alan Hargrove, founder of Hargrove and Associates, 38 years in forensic accounting, a man who had spent 4 years on my grandfather's behalf assembling the evidence of what my father had done, had submitted his firm's complete findings to the State Attorney General's office 14 months prior. The investigation had been conducted in parallel parallel with the trust's legal proceedings, deliberately sequenced so that the civil and criminal matters would resolve without interfering with each other. My grandfather had been planning this for 4 years, from a wheelchair, in a corner by my parents' kitchen door. Gerald Roy Foster was indicted on 7 counts, including securities fraud, forgery of corporate documents, and misappropriation of fiduciary assets. His attorney, a man named Philip Watts, 22 years in white-collar criminal defense, filed motions to delay the proceedings for 6 months. The judge, the Honorable Diane Marsh, granted 1 extension and denied the rest. My father has not been my father in any functional sense for longer than I have understood it. But watching the indictment process through the reporting that followed, because it was reported, a billion-dollar family fraud is the kind of story that gets picked up, produced in me a feeling I will describe as grief adjacent. Not grief for him, grief for the version of events where none of this was true. My mother retained her own attorney, separate from my father's, within the week. I have no information about the current status of their marriage because I have not sought it. Brooke called me 3 weeks after the conference room. She did not call to say anything in particular. She called and said my name and then was quiet for a while. And I was quiet too, and then she said, "I saw his face when you put the bird on the table." "What did it look like?" I said. "Like he finally understood something," she said. "Too late, I thought about that." "What did you understand?" I said. She was quiet again. "That I should have said something at the dinner table. Any of those years. Any time. There was nothing I could say to that which would have made it better." So I said, "I know." And we stayed on the phone a while longer without talking about anything important. And when we hung up, I thought that might be the beginning of something, or it might not be, and I was going to let it be what it was. Tom Crane and I met 12 times in the 3 months following the reading. He had the patient thoroughness of someone who has transferred significant estates before and understands that the human element takes longer than the legal one. He walked me through the company, the properties, the subsidiary structure, the mortgage instruments, the investment accounts, the physical assets. I had a question at the second meeting that I asked in the direct way of someone who needs the actual answer. "Did he know?" I said. "When he gave me the bird, did he know what he was giving me?" Crane considered the question with the attention it deserved. "He knew," he said. "He'd been building the legal case for 4 years. He knew the timing. He knew the reading would happen after." He paused. "He also knew you would carry it." I took that in. "He said he only carved them for the ones who'd never leave him in the cold," I said. Crane nodded. "That's consistent with what he told me." I put my hand in my coat pocket. The wren was there. "He was testing people," I said. "The corner by the kitchen, the scraps. He was watching who said something. He watched for a long time," Crane said, "and nobody said anything. For years. You said something," he said. I thought about that for a moment. "He already knew I would," I said. "Yes," said Crane. "He did. I still work at Carver's Grill on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. I do this because a food service shift is one of the few contexts I know where the work is immediate and physical and complete. A table is served, a plate is cleared, a shift ends. The rest of my life has become the kind of thing that involves attorneys and fiduciary responsibilities, and a conference call on Thursday mornings with the Wren and Oak executive team, which is 14 people who are managing to be professional about the fact that their chairman of the board is a 26-year-old former waitress who is learning faster than they expected. I am learning faster than they expected. I have a good accountant, a woman named Sandra Park who has been in estate management for 19 years and who has the quality I most value in a professional. She tells me what she actually thinks. I have Tom Crane, who has become something I did not anticipate, which is a person I trust. I have an employment attorney named Marcus Webb, who is handling the corporate governance questions. I have people. I did not for most of my life have people. Walt's carved wren is on my desk during the Thursday morning calls. 14 people on a video screen and a small pale bird in a corner of my vision, warm in its own way even when I don't have it in my hand. He built the company over 30 years. He was robbed of its formal ownership for 27 of them and ran it anyway, through intermediaries and legal structures of remarkable intricacy, with the patience of a man who intended to be proven right and was in no hurry about the timing. He was 91 years old and 88 pounds and a wet wool coat. He was the deadweight who held their mortgage. He was the man in the corner who watched and waited and gave his carvings only to the ones who would stay. I carry the bird. I carry what he asked me to carry. The weight of it is nothing. The weight of it is everything.